Hi guys, so let's take a look at different policy responses governments can use to actually help redistribute income in society in really an attempt to make things more equal. So if they are concerned about inequality, what can they do? Right, firstly, progressive forms of taxation. Of course, in the UK we have a progressive rate of taxation rising from 20 to 40 to 45% depending upon income levels. So those highest income earners will be taxed at that highest rate of taxation. Okay, now this enables money to be transferred from the rich to the poor in society via these transfer payments, okay? Transfer payments in the form of unemployment benefits. Now, the downside, the potential danger with this is, of course, an unemployment trap. So an unemployment trap is, of course, where people are actually encouraged to actually stay unemployed rather than participate in the labour market. Okay, so whenever you're thinking about actually providing benefits, this is really an excellent piece of analysis that you've got to consider. What incentive does that have on people that are actually out of the job market at the moment? Okay, now further to this, tax policies can also be used when it comes to inheritance tax, and of course we have an inheritance tax. Beyond a certain threshold, that inheritance tax kicks in. In addition to that, it could be a capital tax as well. And that capital tax could be via, for instance, capital gains tax, where increases in the actual value of an asset, when that asset is sold, then you may well find yourself subject to capital gains tax. Okay. Now, one of the areas that has been targeted quite heavily in recent times has been Buytolet landlords. So if a Buytolet landlord chooses to sell a home which has doubled in value, they will be taxed quite significantly upon that. Further to that, if they wish to buy additional houses, the stamp duty rate increases, of course. But for first-time buyers, there is no stamp duty up to about 250,000. Okay, so there's a variety of tax policies that can be used. Further to that, we've got means-tested benefits. So the fact that people's actual current means are tested to see and to ensure that they are worthy and needing of support from the government, from the taxpayer, can also be used to help redistribute income. But of course, we then could be in danger of this unemployment trap opening up once again. Okay, then increased government spending on education. Now, this has been used in regard to pupil premium payments. That is students coming from more economically deprived backgrounds, and that payment will help to actually cover textbooks, revision books, and ensure that they receive payment as well for any school trips which are educational. Yeah, that has been used, and that of course can really be furthered as well. So for instance, when it comes to the education regulator, Ofsted, they really do look very, very closely at the performance of those pupil premium students, and so schools have an incentive to really act on ensuring that the outcomes for those students are as good or even better than all other students in the school. Okay. But of course, you know, now we can actually analyse this against the fiscal budget position. Okay, so this gives us another crucial tool of evaluation now. Okay, then minimum or maximum wages. Okay, when it comes to minimum wages, how high is it going to be set above the equilibrium? Because of course that will have an impact on unemployment. Okay, so that is really significant. Then we've got the point about removing regressive indirect taxes. So VAT, for instance, people actually buying goods from poorer households are in effect spending more of their disposable income on value-added tax than those with higher disposable income. So those indirect taxes are highly regressive. When it comes to the sugar tax, again, that's going to be highly regressive. So the government could actually think about reducing or removing some of those more indirect more regressive indirect taxes. Okay, again, we've got fiscal budget concerns there, Bo, okay? How else can you incentivise work in relation to childcare? So it's sometimes argued that the UK actually could move to a system more in line with the likes of Germany and Denmark, where in nurseries they have a higher child to staff ratio. In doing so, that would help to cut the costs of childcare, because of course you would need less staff then. Okay, so that's another interesting idea which has been proposed, because those very low paid people, otherwise they cannot simply afford to go to work because they've got to pay for childcare, which in the UK is really quite expensive. Okay, then we could free up some greenbelt areas to increase housing, the housing stock in areas where there is really high demand. Okay, this of course would not be terribly popular with those people that live near that greenbelt area, but if the government is really truly serious on tackling inequality and improving the availability and supply of housing, then this could certainly be cited as a means by doing so. But of course, public choice theory and the fact that the people in these areas are likely to oppose this, it's likely to mean few governments will want to take that on. Okay, then final point, take low paid out of national insurance contributions, because of course that is regressive as well. Okay, and this does of course bear an influence upon the fiscal budget once again. Okay, so lots of interesting points here, some of them very, very controversial, okay, and some of them more conventional, like the progressive taxation policies. So let's just think about evaluating all of this. Well, how effective are each of these likely to be? How effective is progressive taxation truly? Does that really help? We live in such a globalised world now that actually many individuals may choose to actually place their wealth abroad and overseas. So to what extent does this truly help? Okay, what about whether a solution is really necessary? As you can see, I've put here. Okay, so is a solution necessary to inequality? We've seen that it does actually reflect differences in productivity, as well as helping to provide a healthy level of incentives within the economy. So again, that's another really interesting point that you could discuss in any judgment here. How great is the level of inequality, and how great does it need to be before it becomes a real concern? The Kuznets curve, of course, suggests that as the economy becomes wealthier, then inequality should diminish. That's happened within some economies, but of course not all. And what about this? Is freedom of economic opportunity the crucial factor? So if everyone actually has this, and they have the ability to actually go to good schools and gain a good education, then actually, is it just about differences in hard work and whether people actually just want to be productive? Okay, so another interesting area there. But of course, there's so many evaluative themes you could look at here, and that could include, for instance, supply-side policies, and to what extent they could help to reduce inequality. Yeah, lots and lots of different areas to be considered in relation to this, but you've also got to remember, where does this rank in terms of government's macroeconomic objectives? And if you are addressing this, how is that going to conflict with other macro objectives? Okay guys, thanks a lot.